All right, so guys, let's get back. Let's recap what we did last time. All right. So last time we were looking at. We did a little bit about who was to blame and stuff. You've got that for your essay to do, which I put up on manuscript for you. But let's just look at the background to the Korean War. So can somebody explain to me what the domino theory was? Yes.
It's basically when, like in context with this. So basically, what the U.S. believed was that if one country in Asia kind of like fell to communism, then all the countries around that will fall for communism and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a row of dominoes. So one domino flicks over, another domino flicks over, another domino, etc. So if one country falls to communism, let's say if, like, I don't know, Korea falls to communism, then that will knock down the next domino, maybe Vietnam, then the next domino Thailand, then Malaysia, etc., etc., etc. All right, not entirely foolish. All right, not entirely just sort of like a crazy theory, although this is nonsense. All right, arguably it's got a lot of truth to it, and from the perspective of 1949, has a huge amount of truth for it, because it's kind of what's happened in Europe. All right, as the Red Armies advanced across Eastern Europe, each domino, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, finally Czechoslovakia, they've all fallen to communism. Okay, so it's not a implausible theory. So where did we see, one is a big one and there's two kind of smaller ones, where did we see that communism was advancing in Asia? What's the big one? No.
I was supposed to say China?
Yeah, China's the big one, right? We got the fall of China. This is the big one, right? It's a big one because it's like at that time the world's largest country by population. So immediately you've got I'm going to guess, but let's say a fifth of the world's population is now communist, right? That's a big defeat for the West, particularly for the United States, because it felt as though China was very close to the United States, and so it was seen as the loss of China. All right, a lot of blame within the U.S. government over this gave impetus for the McCarthyite Red Scare of lots of communists in the United States. State Department particularly, who were betraying the United States. Elements of truth in there. There were lots of spies. Why did North Korea attack South Korea? Several reasons we can have for this, yeah?
One of them was to get them to be communist, and the second one was to unite. Yeah,
so we've got to unite the country. We're going to unite Korea. Secondly, we are going to spread communism. All right? But before he did this, who did he ask permission from? Stalin. He went to Stalin. And Stalin said, yes, of course, but only if... Who supports you?
China.
China, yeah. Awesome. So, this is where we finished off last lesson. How would you react if you were Truman? What sort of things did we say? Can you remember? Yeah, man.
A lot of people talked about how they try and put the the Truman Doctrine into action and try and put containment into action and stop the spread of communism. So
that's number one, yes, policy of containment, right? We need to contain communism. This is its first test of the policy of containment. It's also a test for what other organisation? The UN, explain.
Because, the League of Nations failed largely due to its inaction, and if the successor of the League of Nations, which is the UN, does the exact same mistake, then that is not good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you like to mix our metaphors and to mix our questions here, we could say that the League of Nations doing nothing in the face of aggression. The first domino was also in Asia, just across the border, was when Japan invaded Manchuria. We could say that was the first domino to fall, that then led to Abyssinia, which then led to the Rhineland, then led to Anschluss, etc., etc. All right. So today, first part of the lesson. All right, we're going to look at Truman's decision to intervene. Spoiler: you've already pretty much got the main reasons. All right. So key question we've got is why did Truman decide to intervene in the Korean War? All right. For Stalin, all right, he makes mistakes here. All right. He believed that Truman would not react militarily. He based this on one main reason. All right. One main reason was, what else has he got in 1949? What's been a massive change in the balance of power. Atomic bombs, yeah. The United States no longer has an atomic monopoly. So the Russians now have an atomic bomb. So if the United States goes to war, it risks being on the receiving end of a nuclear attack. So because of this, he believes the United States is not going to risk going to war. The second reason is, if the United States does actually get to war, hey, Miss Mangela, it'll have to be about 2:30. Okay, thank you. If the United States does react militarily, it's going to take a long time to get there. Where are they going to get their forces from? All right, so by which time the United States actually arrives in force in Korea, it's going to be too late, and they've got a fait accompli, which means that everything's done. So he is even so confident that the United States is not going to be able to intervene, and if it did, that the United States would be so late, that he's boycotting the United Nations because the UN refuses to recognize Mao's communist government in China. It still has the old Chinese government under the Kuomintang of Chiang Kai-shek. This is a mistake. Why? Can you remember from last lesson why we said this was a mistake? Yeah?
Lost his veto now?
Yeah, can't veto it. You have to be there to veto, and he's not there to veto. So, Truman decides on military intervention. Two main reasons. Number one, as Mayor correctly said at the start, okay, we've got the policy of containment. And here what I've done is written down what I would say, to be, I don't know, vain, is how you would structure a paragraph on this. If you were to get the question, why did Truman intervene, this would be a first paragraph. If the policy of containment and the Truman Doctrine was to mean anything, especially after the so-called loss of China to the communists, the United States had to act to prevent a communist takeover of South Korea. Moreover, fear of a domino effect, where communists in Indochina and Malaya would be emboldened by a communist victory in Korea, and the increasing anti-communism in the United States, so there was popular support against communism, ensures that Truman had to intervene militarily to maintain any sort of credibility. And also in he's going to be coming up for election as well, so he's going to have to do well. All right. 1952 will be up for election. So this is the first one, right? So if Korea falls, then it's going to mean that what's going to be next. If you have a policy of containment, basically where you draw a line in the sand and say you can't cross this, and somebody crosses that, well, where's your next line going to be? Who's going to believe you? So for containment to have any kind of credibility, this is where it has to take. This is what it has to take action. All right. Second is the credibility of the United Nations. The United Nations have been established after the Second World War, in large part to ensure that there would never be another war. Go away. Thank you. So there will be another war. One of the reasons why the Second World War happened was because the predecessor of the United Nations, the League of Nations, had failed to effectively protect countries which had been invaded, noticeably when Japan invaded Manchuria and Italy invaded Ethiopia. By failing to stand up to aggression, the League had only encouraged further acts of aggression, and this led directly to the Second World War. Moreover, events like Munich crisis seem to show, and this is like the big ghost in at the goes to the dinner, goes to the dance, seems to show that appeasing aggression only made war more likely. So every lesson we've learned: 1, stand up to dictators, don't appease aggression. Number 2, always have an international organisation, it has to stand up to aggression, means that the United Nations has to intervene. So consequently, the invasion of South Korea by North Korea, 2 members of the United Nations, is seen as a big test of the United Nations and how it would stand up to aggression. If the United Nations failed to act, it will become another failed League of Nations. Alright? That's basically what we have to do. And next, we have this little cartoon. Because remember, you might well get this cartoon because this is, paper 2 is US policy of containment, so this is one here. Let's take a look at this cartoon. Can you all see this cartoon? Yeah. 3 figures. Who are the 3 figures in the cartoon?
UN, League of Nations.
Is that Truman?
It is Truman, yeah. If you get sort of like a guy with a bow tie and nerdy glasses, that's going to be Truman. Alright? Bow tie and glasses, that's Truman. So you've got, which one's the League of Nations?
In the grave.
In the grave, and which one's the United Nations?
The one with the superhero.
The one who looks like superhero, yeah? Alright.
Is that a machine gun?
It is a machine gun. What do you think the significance of that is?
America.
No.
What?
Well, the League of Nations, look at the United Nations. It's got a gun. What does that show?
About, the United Nations is about to murder the League of Nations.
Well, no, it's going over the grave. But what does the purpose of the gun show? What does it say the League of Nations is now that the League of Nations wasn't?
Powerful?
It's armed. Yeah, it's powerful. It's weapons. It's got guns. It's actually going to war over something. It's actually doing what it says it would do. It's going to war. All right? And because, let's look at the League of Nations. What does the gravestone say?
Died of lack of exercise facing something aggression.
Wanton aggression. Wanton aggression means just like kind of like crazy over the top. All right? So League of Nations, there's the League of Nations, died because of lack of exercise facing wanton aggression. What's another way of putting that? Another way of putting that is it did nothing. Alright, it did nothing. It didn't exercise. It did 0 in the face of any kind of aggression. But here we have aggression jumping over the grave. We have the United Nations with a gun. And then we have the thing at the bottom. What does the message at the bottom say?
History doesn't repeat itself.
Because normally we say history does repeat itself, but here the cartoonist is saying history doesn't repeat itself. Why is history not repeating itself?
Because the UN's not repeating the mistakes of the League of Nations.
By
taking action.
excellent, yeah. So this saying history doesn't repeat itself because this time the League of Nations is taking action. Okay, so that's brilliant. So somebody pithily tell me, what is the message of the cartoon?
It's a pro-United Nations cartoon. Like, look at this aggression that's happening and look at how they're dealing with it. This is actually going to turn out well for once.
That's about a third. All right, because you've missed the most important bit that they're jumping over. What are they jumping over, Mayor?
The grave of the League of Nations.
Okay, so you need to add that to redo your answer, but include that.
It shows how the United Nations is willing to act out against unnecessary aggression and how they're not like the League of Nations in this because they're actually doing their job instead of letting the bad thing happen.
Okay, bad thing being war happening, yeah? Excellent, that's right. To make it a perfect answer, you would want to draw out, you want a quote from a cartoon, all right? Where you have your sources, you want to be able to quote from them. Okay, so where you have a written source, you're like, well, that's easy to quote. You can just say out a couple of words. But quoting from a cartoon means mentioning what the cartoon shows. So, Cider, right? Mayor will mention there about how the United Nations, unlike the League of Nations, is going to go to war. Is armed. What bit of the cartoon does that demonstrate?
What bit of the cartoon?
Yeah, does it demonstrate that the League of Nations is armed?
The part where it's jumping over and it's holding the
He's holding a machine gun. Yeah, excellent, excellent. All right. And so all of this, that the United Nations will be different to the League of Nations because history doesn't repeat itself. Okay. There's one extra thing here that I've thought of that is you could almost add to it. What's one difference illustrated by one of the figures that the United Nations has that the League of Nations never did?
Determination.
There's a character there, there's a personification there. Huh? Yes.
Oh, the support of its members.
Not the support of its members.
America.
America, yeah, exactly. What, tell me, explain that.
Because when the League of Nations was originally made, even though the idea came from the American president, America wasn't part of the League.
Yes,
I
and
think
now
there were a lot of countries outside of Europe, so this is a way of showing that.
pretty much every country was in the League of Nations. There weren't that many countries outside Europe because Europeans had empires.
Oh, because that way,
Yeah.
technically.
Yeah, there wasn't, you know, there wouldn't be like India, Sri Lanka, because it was like, that's Britain. Sorry, guys. You know, same with like most of Africa. All right, so that's why there weren't so many countries outside Europe. But every country there was, even like, you know, Abyssinia. All right, that's just an independent African state, still has slavery and stuff. All right, that's a member of the League of Nations. So pretty much every country was a member of the League of Nations, but the United States.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome. So what happens? The United Nations Security Council unanimously condemns the action. United Nations Security Council Resolution 82, followed by Resolution 83 on the 27th of June. So we've got 2 days, or 3 days, 25th, 26th, 27th. Stalin's doing nothing. It's not just he misses one vote, he misses the second vote as well, where they go for military assistance to the Republic of Korea. Republic of Korea is like the proper name for South Korea. Because they're boycotting the Security Council, Stalin could not use his veto, and the United Nations is now going to war. Alright? Everything that you've said the League of Nations should have done, the United Nations is now doing. Every time you've said in an essay, or you've spoken in class about how the League of Nations should have stood up to Hitler, how everybody should have stood up to Mussolini in Japan, well, you're going to see what happens. Alright? The United Nations is going to work. And yes, this will be dominated by the United States military, but there will also be significant contributions from other countries as well, notably Great Britain, Philippines, Turkey, lots and lots of countries get involved. Alright? So listen, this is pretty much the old style masking, but it's pretty much the same. Alright, so why did Truman intervene in Korea in 1940? Classic type B question. Alright, and you have two explanations. You always have to give two explanations, and we have our two explanations, containment and we have the United Nations. This is a really simple question. You really want this question. It's nice and easy. Alright, and you can see what you have to do is you have to explain. Identify means containment was one reason. Well done, you've identified a reason. Containment means standing up to communism. Well done, you've described a reason. Explain means the paragraphs to be written. Alright? That gets you top marks. Any questions on that? Okay? Maya, you are the Korea skeptic. How do you feel about that now, about the origins of the Korean War?
It's a bit more easier to understand.
Yeah, awesome. We're going to stop there because that will be our first lesson. So can we stop and then